Yep, we're rolling. We're live, folks, on QSPNLive.com.
Thank you all for being here at this meet and greet to meet Matt Saporito, who's running for City Commissioner, which is a really important job because this person who oversees the ongoings of our city and its growth, which is expected to grow 20,000 more people in the next 10 years. That's 7 families per week that are moving in, and it's a big job. Effie and I had the pleasure of meeting Matt at, I know you're gonna love this, Spanish Peaks Resort at a photo shoot. we went glamping.
Yes.
And had a party and didn't have to pay for it. Even better. Yeah, and we really just hit it off and started talking about sustainability, and that's one of the concerns I have about growth in our valley. So that's something that Matt's going to talk about tonight. And we had a 2-hour conversation the other day. We thankfully recorded it and refreshed my memory today. We talked about a lot of things. The things that struck me were the fact that Matt comes from a really stable home life, and he's 32 years old, and he has the time and the calling to step up to the plate in a really particular time that we're living in. So that's incredible. I'd like to hear more about that, Matt. And I think also the resources that we have here in Gallatin Valley, including not only those of us who are brand new to this community, there are several of us in this room who are not native, who bring our talents and convictions with us and find those niches to fill. I'm going to talk about how in the future the city is going to absorb us, or we can somehow be a social change mechanism for creating a brighter, more sustainable future for the valley, especially for the city of Bozeman. Another thing I really appreciated that we talked about was how you're not a politician. This is something you felt called to do, so I wanted you to talk about that. And then what we're going to do, the format is hear Matt talk about the things that he wants to talk about, plus those things that I'd like to hear more about. And then we'll take questions, we'll have a conversation, and this is being recorded also for social media purposes so Matt can get his message out. So let's be really specific and talk about the things that you care about. So that's my introduction, Matt. Thank you for being here. Thank you for stepping up to the plate.
Thanks for coming. I will give you a little bit of information about myself for those of us who just met tonight. Like Michelle said, I'm 32, grew up in New Jersey, moved out here to go to school at MSU, got a scholarship, and graduated with a degree in global and multicultural studies, which is political science and history. Never really used anything to do with it afterwards, staying in town here, just doing odd jobs, staying around, and eventually creating my own little leather company, which is all hand-stitched, all U.S. steel leather. It's all the stuff people say they want in goods these days, and we're trying to actually produce these things. It's something I don't want to fall apart in 2 years. I'd like you to have it forever. So I'd like to take that sort of approach to life and business in politics and just do things correctly the first time and take our time with them. Tonight, I guess I kind of want to just do really informal discussions. I'd like to talk about some things that I've previously mentioned. I'd like to talk about some things we haven't talked about before, and just go from there. Like Michelle said, I've never done this before. I am not in this to make any money. I'm not in this for any nefarious purposes. I want to make this town better, and I want to give it a new perspective with a younger voice for a different generation, a different way to look at things that are getting done right now. As far as anything, would you say any particular thing you want me to start with? Any
sustainability or something?
Sustainability?
So why are you stepping up to the plate now?
I guess I'm stepping up to the plate now because I feel like the atmosphere is ripe, from the federal level to the state level to the opportunity at the local level. I feel that people are paying more attention, even if it's just a little bit more than they have in the past, and hopefully we can capitalize on that and get some more people involved. I would really like to show the younger folks they don't need $10,000 to be competitive. They just need some good volunteers, a good network, and a good message. And hopefully they're a good person too, because that obviously goes a long way. In a small town like this, you really have to count on the friends you've built up over the years. And hopefully that'll pay off. Hopefully that'll be a stronger message than money. Hopefully, a friend that comes up to somebody and says, hey, this is a good guy, he's got good ideas, vote for him, even though you haven't seen him on TV. Hopefully that'll go farther than just ads on TV. And hopefully somebody else will get more involved in the future here. Hopefully more young folks will follow in the footsteps and either run for office or run for advisory board positions, or at least go to the meetings and give their 3-minute speech so people hear them. I know we've talked about all sorts of new approaches towards town here, and with sustainability and things, I guess regarding the west side, what I see a bunch is just they come in and they flatten a whole area of land, and they don't take into regard the trees that are there, they don't take into regard the streams that go through the property, they don't take into regard any of the natural features. And even though we have this open blank canvas of fields that we grow on, we seem to destroy the natural attributes that's there in order to conform to the developments that we want to see in place. And I think that the town could change its views, change its focus on what we prioritize, where we can leave the old growth trees, we can leave the stream, the route that it's taken naturally, and create subdivisions and the future of development around those things. I think Bozeman would be great. I would love to see Bozeman be the town out west that people from Copenhagen and other really forward-thinking cities come to see what we've done, to see what they could do in other, in other areas of the country, to take lessons from us instead of vice versa. We've got a lot of responsibility with being close to Yellowstone, and even though we're growing and so popular, we have to make sure we don't destroy Yellowstone and the surrounding ecosystem, that we grow smart. I would love to see steps taken for more different green systems, whether it be solar tubes, solar hot water, radiant floor heating, just the orientation of buildings so natural sunlight comes in so you don't have to turn your lights on during the day. Little things like that, simple changes that aren't necessarily going to cost us a lot of money, but just kind of tweak the way we approach these issues, or what we find to be important and what we don't consider to be important. So yeah, I would like to just kind of be a fresh set of eyes, a fresh brain, a fresh approach, and kind of throw a curveball in there and give people a voice that, it sounds cheesy, but to represent folks who haven't necessarily been represented in a traditional fashion for the commission in the past. Half of us are under 30 years old, and so I think it would be smart if we had somebody around that age representing them on the board. We've talked about creating an advisory board of just renters, so the developers and the real estate agents are aware of what renters are looking for, so not only when we build, which is inevitable, we're going to build what is going to help those people who live in Bozeman already, and hopefully will help them move up into a more stable environment. Everything from tiny homes that's going to help one person just find a stable spot to live, to a family with 2 or 3 kids, to people who don't have 2 or 3 kids anymore and have an empty nest and are now looking for something smaller that's more affordable. So all areas in the spectrum there I think are going to be important. And then I kind of wanted to open up discussion with an idea that we had mentioned a little bit beforehand that was brought up in the previous forum, and that was about pay equality and what Bozeman can do to just be more proactive and engaging with businesses and creating an equality platform for folks. And we briefly mentioned at the forum, and something that's been on my mind, is coming up with a way where businesses, we can approach businesses in town and say, kind of like the Better Business Bureau, where it's basically your reputation. And we can come to you as a business owner and say, do you promise or do you already provide equal pay for all your employees? And if you do, and if you want it to be publicly known, then you can sign up and you can be promoted in Bozeman. So not only do you get the recognition you deserve as a business owner for equal pay, but women will know where they can go for a good job, where they get paid equally, and as consumers, we can put our money where our mouths are, and we can make sure that we spend our money, the businesses that do provide equality for any gender that they have. And I thought with that, there's got to be a way we can talk with small business owners in town. I would imagine it would be really easy to talk with businesses that are owned by women to begin with. I would love to talk with, I know Babs owns Alara Jewelry, and some of the local clothing stores downtown. I think that'd be a great spot to start and get them on board, and even maybe promote it in town, give them a sticker in their store so when tourists come they know this is an equal opportunity store, all that stuff. And not only that, but we could apply pressure to those who aren't doing it or who are lagging behind and say, hey, we have this opportunity for you here to promote everybody equally, to pay them equally, and it's becoming public. People are using it, the information, where they spend their money, where they put their dollar, and we'd love for you to join. And not only would it be nice to have it paid, but I would love to see more women flock to Bozeman in general. Ever since being in college here, it's been a terrible ratio. And it'd be nice to have some level of additional comfort for women who move out here. And there's not a ton of traditionally female industries beyond nursing and some of the more traditional gender roles, which is unfortunate, but I would love to be able to attract more women out here based purely on, no matter what industry you're in, on pure and equal pay. We have so many high-tech companies coming in, we have all these laser companies, we have all these things that I've never even heard of before, and it would be great if, especially in the STEM section, if we could do science, technology, math, and all those areas, if we can get equal pay for women in those industries, I think that would set a great example for other towns who are trying to grow in the same sort of fashion. So I would love to open up it to discussion. I don't really like hearing my own voice. This is longer than any of the forums I've done.
So your message, what I hear is, what you want people to take home tonight is this message, and the message so far is affordable housing and really thinking clearly about sustainability as well at the same time, and then also having the bringing in industry with the equal pay is really important because you're a single guy, selected, live here.
I don't want to make it about me.
Right?
All the men in the way.
Well, it's because he
It
knows
helps
that
everybody.
In the
women
yard
are
count.
smarter.
Oh.
He knows that women are smarter. That's right.
Oh, see? Yeah, see? They've got the right audience right. You want to add something?
Yes. Well, I have a question.
Yeah.
So since you're representing the voice of the youth, 30 something and under, can you tell us what is the youth of Gallatin County? What are their voices? What do they want? What do you guys, care about? What, your age group? What kind of city do you want to see?
Sure. Regarding like affordable housing or
No, whatever. What do you
just
talk
whatever's
about?
important.
Yeah. What do you
Yeah.
care about? Yeah.
Bozeman or,
Yeah.
what makes you stay here and what would you like to see in the future? Is that what you're
Yeah.
saying?
Or even, yeah.
So most people my age who are here didn't come from money, and I know that is beyond my generation. But a lot of the kids that I even went to school with, who are professionals in the engineering, with an engineering degree or architecture degree, they all had to leave for 4 or 5 years and either pay off their student debts or create enough of a nest egg where they could take a 40% decrease in pay to move back to Bozeman. So it always comes back to quality of life for my group, and it's the access to outdoors, fresh air, just the slower pace of life, and it's easy to befriend people here. It's easy to get along with folks. It attracts. Doesn't matter if I'm from New Jersey. It doesn't matter if you're from New Jersey, Texas, California, Colorado. It tends to attract the same sort of person to a degree. We all tend to flock here for very similar reasons, and a big issue with the affordable housing, because quality of life, it's getting the word is spreading. We're spending a lot of money as a town to get the word out there. I think we're spending $200,000 a year to advertise us as a city to the states, just other people in this town. So for them, it's the ability to get out and recreate and go skiing, go cross-country skiing, go jump on your bike from your front door, and those sort of things. It's not about money. None of them are really concerned about finding a better job. They're all quite happy with where they are. And I know that's not the case for everybody in this town. I know a lot of them want more money or want a better job. But they've all been able to find their little niche in town, whether it's at the hospital, whether it's teaching, whether it's currently in construction with all the work that's being done. But for them, it's you know, they don't complain about the restaurants, they don't complain about the hotels, they don't complain about Black and Olive, they don't complain about any of that stuff, and maybe it's because the majority of my friends are on the west side of town, and we don't deal with that every day. But it is just the access to get out and, you know, how quickly we're growing, and they want to make sure that we don't ruin it before it's too late. With growing at 4%, it's just kind of hard. And I know we were talking about this earlier. We grow 16 hours a day. We can start construction at 6 in the morning and go till 10 at night. So you can basically build all day long, every day, and it just becomes incredibly difficult to corral that when you allow it to go, you know, uncontrolled. And so for them, it's about controlling growth and making sure we don't ruin, you know, the surrounding area, making sure we still have wildlife corridors, making sure we still have fresh water for everybody, and those things. They're kind of forward thinkers, I guess. It would be my answer with my crew.
Do they want large parks in the city? Do they want to have access? You know, do they want bike paths? Do they want? I mean, what do you think they want?
Yeah, they don't want to have to take the car everywhere. You know, they want to avoid simple things.
Buses, possibly on the west side.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of my friends are new time families, so they have young children. So a lot of the mothers aren't necessarily thinking buses, but a lot of them have like the tandem bikes, and then they have the chariots that they put behind their bikes, and they take their kids to town in, everything like that. And
so integrating more markets maybe in the various regards to development.
So a lot of them want to have continuous bike paths on major roads, so that are safe for kids to ride on. Because it's one thing if you, as a 32-year-old or whatever, as an adult, feel safe riding on the side of the road, but it's another thing if you send your 8-year-old down the road to their friend's house, you know, you want them to be safer than you might be. And then yes, with going back and forth, they want, you know, we need commercial spaces downtown, and we need commercial spaces out west. It's just, it seems to make sense. I can't tell you how many times I've gone to Sidewinders just because it's there, or Red Chair, to meet my friends for a beer, and it's convenience. And it makes a big difference in a lot of things. And like you're saying, with traffic being a big thing, especially coming from the west side of town, having more commercial nodes out west would greatly cut that down. So yeah, they definitely like that. They love the idea of more bikeability. They love the fact that we're putting up all these new schools. They're in that sort of mindset where they understand that this benefits everybody, and they want their kids to go to the school closest to them. They want a lot of that stuff, and I know that gets tricky with how many kids are moving into town and where they go to school. So yeah, no, overall they're pretty happy. There's some things they would like to see. I know they get paid attention to, but I think they'd like to see the priorities shuffle a little bit. And so things like bikeability and things that just are more oriented towards younger folks, not luxurious projects, not large things that, you know, are seen to, and even just the disbursement of projects, like the path that goes from the Legends subdivision to the M as a bike trail. That's nice for people who live in the Legends or the west side of town or the east side of town there, but it's not incredibly practical. And so I would like to see more practical projects get put in the west side of town that aren't fancy, that aren't paved, that are just, you know, gravel paths, but that are more practical for kids and things like that. I don't see why, there's no reason we don't have a bike path that goes between Durston and Olive all the way from the new high school, elementary school combo, to the regional park, to behind REI, and all the way down to the east side of town before we put in these subdivisions. You know, once we put all these subdivisions in, it's going to be really hard to create alternatives to get to town. And so for me, it's more of, you know, you do this beforehand, you come up with a master plan, and then each subdivision has to work around your master plan of alternative transportation to get to hubs in town.
So how would you pay for that? Would you make the developer pay for that in the regards to whoever owned the property on that, or would you, you know, have some type of eminent domain, so you pay for it for the developer?
I guess it would do a couple things. One, it would be great to work with the developer, and, you know, it would be nice if you said, okay, if you do this for me, maybe we can expedite your permit process. So instead of waiting the normal amount of time, we can push you up to the front of the line.
Or higher density.
Exactly, you know, various things. If they're willing to orient their homes in a different way, or if they're willing to do smaller homes, or a number of things to work with them. Or, you know, a lot of our budget goes towards roads. And if we could somehow maybe avoid spending money on a new intersection and taking that money and allocating it towards the bike paths or alternative modes of transportation, it goes a lot further. You know, like one intersection I think is $1 million on average, up to $4 million, depending on how big it is. So, you know, $1 million to $4 million of bike paths goes much further than one intersection of road. And something that I've been researching and learning about is induced demand, which is kind of what I see happening at Baxter and Davis, where they have an intersection that works, it's not the best, and they see room for improvement, so they want to add more lanes to it. But basically all that will do is the more lanes will make it more convenient for people, and in their head they'll be, oh, it's more convenient now, there's more lanes, it's a turn lane, I'm going to go use that intersection, and it just creates this, basically the problem doesn't change, it just has more people going through it with the same delays, the same issues, everything like that. It's just induced the demand for an intersection that might not have needed it beforehand. So I think being smart with where we spend our money and where we grow and how we grow, and what we incentivize, what we make easier, I think will have various change effects on transportation and how we grow in general.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my thoughts on that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
There's a really strange disconnect between a place having a huge amenity value where everyone wants to be here, even if you're taking a pay cut. So people are flocking here, and then there's new industries like photonics and software development and other industries that are also bringing people here. So there's this movement into Bozeman, and that implies growth. But there are a lot of places that have seen unbridled growth turn into changing the nature of the amenity value of a place, so it's no longer the place you want to be. So there's this weird pressure between having this great place to live, people wanting to be a part of it, and yet if it just grows organically, I guess, you end up undoing the thing that made it charming in the first place. So I wonder how you would deal with that kind of issue.
I agree with you. And my concern is, I guess with that, I hear a lot of people wanting Facebook to come, Google to come, FICO to come, other large companies to come, and I don't really like that idea. I think they should stay where they are, and that we should, fester and grow with the businesses that are already here, that are kind of in the same realm. If you're a business owner and you came here willingly, you're 10 hours from Denver, you're 6 hours from Salt Lake City, you know what you're getting yourself into, and your employees know it. And my fear is if we bring in these larger companies, even though they're good paying jobs and they're stable companies, the workforce isn't going to be here in Bozeman, so they're going to have to import all the workers as well, which is only going to make housing demand go up. And they're not going to necessarily come here because they like Bozeman. They're going to come here for their job that they have, and the company's going to have their reasons to come here. And my fear with that is they're here, and they're going to miss where they came from, and they're going to want to tweak things and change it into where they were forced to leave because their business had left. And you're right, I think there is a trade-off. If we grow at 4%, because we're so in high demand now, that 4% growth is going to change the nature of town, and just naturally, I think the demand and the appeal will fall off. And there is that balance of, making sure people are comfortable here, and that we grow and create, but at the same time not ruining why people came here to begin with, and why that
So you think you could augment that growth just through certain policies, because usually people just want to just keep coming.
Yeah,
because
until
it's
it's
good.
not desirable.
And there also is, in addition to big companies that are thinking of relocating, there are a lot of people that are talking about doing startups, small businesses, and I've seen a lot of growth just in the few years I've been here. So you have these small people, entrepreneurs probably like yourself, that are trying to do something that's meaningful to them. So are those kind of businesses you want to encourage the smaller ones and then try to disincentivize larger companies from moving in?
Yeah, I don't know if I want to disincentivize them, but I don't want to concentrate on them.
Yeah.
I don't want to give them any breaks. I don't want to...
Like tax breaks.
Yeah, I don't want to lay out a red carpet for them. I would prefer to help the businesses that are already here grow. I would love to see businesses with 0 and 5 employees grow to up to 50 and really help the small to medium-sized manufacturers become stable and kind of create a niche for ourselves that way. I know high tech is important, and I would love for some of it to be here, but I don't think we need to become a high tech hub necessarily. I think they have plenty of hubs and they can come if they want, but I don't think we necessarily need to entice them or to incentivize them to come. I think we can do just fine without doing that and growing with what we already have and helping them grow into bigger, more stable businesses. I would love it if we could come up with some sort of building downtown where small businesses wouldn't necessarily have to move every time they were going to grow a little bit. If we could come up with this new form of commercial building where we could have walls that kind of change on the inside and have like a community space where all creators or all makers can be under one roof. And then if for a showroom purpose, you could have one location in general, so we don't each need to have our own showroom, or we don't need to each have our own employee who's there selling our goods as we're manufacturing them, but we could be under one roof. So collectively, you know, we could have one person that represents the shop for however many makers are in this one building. And then as time goes on, people are going to move in, move out. If I want to move but don't want to find a new landlord or a new building, you know, if we are creative with how we build it, and I'm thinking of the sub ballroom, I'm thinking of old rec gyms in high schools and things like that, where they have walls that slide and remove. So this way, if I want to expand or if I need to shrink, I can do it without having to change my location, without having to put down a new deposit, without having to go through the whole rigmarole of changing locations for my business, and really helping those smaller ones grow. Not
Like
hurting.
incubators kind of thing?
Yeah.
An incubator or a warehouse for things.
Exactly. I mean,
There's
I'm
the
thi-
collective.
Exactly. I'm
there's
thinking
the-
of all the people that I do the farmers markets with, basically,
Right, yeah.
who have good products, who are trying to get off
Emerson.
their feet, who are doing it as a side project, who might not be able to be there all day long, so they would need somebody else to sell their product for them, but have a good enough product and are kind of right there, but just don't have the necessary spot that they can rent in town.
And we were talking the other day about how we're both from other parts of the United States. I'm from Illinois. In my hometown, we had a factory, a tire factory that went out of business, and I think there were like thousands of jobs lost. And the facility was ginormous, and it became a Superfund site. It's still vacant, and it still has all the contaminants there. And it's been 25, maybe 30 years later, and that was something that you've experienced in your time in Jersey and wherever else you've been. So with that, I mean, even Missoula has the lumber mill that's now a Superfund site, and no one can afford to buy it, let alone reclaim the land. So yeah, it's
We're
something.
doing a cool project though. The mill is pretty interesting. I don't know.
Story mill?
Yeah. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and I would love to see. I mean, those old buildings. I would love it if we didn't have to knock those things down, and we could use those.
I think there's plans of
They're
keeping
gonna- yeah.
them, and then of course there's a maze in there. Have you seen the plan for it?
No.
It's wicked. It's so cool. I mean, there's like a maze in there. There's a community amphitheater. There's lots of fun stuff that are going to be doing in that.
Oh yeah, it's
So-
the park. The park you're talking
The
about.
park.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's extensive.
Is that like right where?
It's like a lot of acres. I don't know exactly
It's
how
right on
many it is.
It was right on the
Right,
corner
the story
where the
mill.
old
That whole
the old
was
trailer
going to
park.
be a development, but now it's been turned into
It
a
was
park.
a trailer park up until maybe
Yeah.
2005,
Yeah.
2006.
Mhm.
Hasn't been anything since.
No, it's just been sitting in kind of a
been
but
sitting
it's
in-
exciting kind of
yeah.
thing.
It is absolutely. That's good. Yeah, those projects are
I
great.
was hoping they'd do some type of tiny village there or something.
There was talks.
Tiny
I think that would
Yeah,
be
there was
a-
talks of that. That was actually, I think, the Blixeths were
Yeah.
the son was planning on developing.
Blixeth's son.
I think so.
Okay, yeah, he's.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you know where that went. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But with that kind of in mind, just with open spaces and things, I would like to see the city take a more like natural approach to how we develop and what we enforce. I don't really like the fact that they enforce all these lawns. I'd like for them to promote xeriscape landscaping. I would love it if they didn't allow you to put it on your sprinkler at 3 o'clock in the afternoon in the middle of the summer. I would love them to make little changes like that, and start with their own properties, to put their money where their mouth is, and not force other people to do it, but not water
Right.
their own properties in the middle of the day, not use the
Right.
fertilizers they use, not put it down as much sod as we need to, so we have to water,
Being
so we have
progressive and
to.
environmental.
Exactly, let's let the native grasses grow. Let's let some of the animals stick around.
What do you think of infill? So the idea of, TDRs,
Yeah.
right? I'm sure Bart's, talked your ear off of that. The idea behind that, I don't know if many people know, but the transfer of development rights,
Yeah.
right? You're making more density,
Yeah.
there's I have a large parcel of property that, a lot of the property is being when we're doing the final plat and things like that, there's a lot of property that ends up being sucked into open space and parkland dedication and affordable housing. And so, no money, no money, no money, right? And then what ends up happening is the small amount of property that's left is what ends up happening is you end up having to, make it less affordable for people. And so the idea is maybe even just being able to develop most of it, pulling that open space and taking it into a larger parcel.
Yeah.
Say, this little 1 acre here, 1 acre there, 1 acre there could be 192 acres out in the community. What do you think of that?
I would love to see congruent large spaces of open space run together. It's going to be really tricky because the majority of open space is outside of city limits. So even if we go up and in, we don't have that much say as far as protection is concerned outside of city limits. And I think that's an issue we need to face, because if you go up and in, that's great, but the purpose of up and in is protect out, right? It's protect open space, go against sprawl. But if we go up and in without any protection for out, once we go up and in, we're gonna go out. So
Right.
I think there needs to be either more talks with the county as far as protecting open space. Hey, we'll take the buildings, we'll develop, but we need to work, together to make sure open space is protected. Or, we need to do it now on the west side of town and save some of those open spaces and just make sure, it would be great if they ran together. I would love it if they weren't just stupid little pockets that were little islands and weren't really good for anything besides mice and snakes. I would love it to be healthy little ecosystems where everything from, an animal can go from the Gallatin Range to the Bridger Range and go right through town, stroll right through town. I think that would be fantastic. But I do like infill. I do like up to a degree. I just want to make sure that we are conscious of the fact that we don't have a lot of open space to protect ourselves, and that with this current policy, we need to make sure we work with the county or annex the right properties or work with GVLT or whoever has the same sort of goal to make sure that once we go up and in, there's still out to protect that the city can protect.
And it sounds like you're willing to actually broker even a relationship between some of the commissioners out in the county, which honestly does not happen currently.
And you'd have to. I mean,
it seems like there's just this disconnect
Yeah.
between, in fact, even just with Bozeman and Belgrade, which are almost melding in together. But I like that the idea of maybe reaching out a hand to that community, because we're all kind of, we're all in the Gallatin County. So good for you.
and it affects us.
That's awesome.
Well, as we go further west, it's just gonna mean more and more, that relationship's just going to be more important.
We'll get annexed.
But weren't you telling me about this?
Getting
is it a
that
law?
tax base from Zoot Enterprises.
Is it a law, or is it like copyrighted? The downtown corridor area, is it copyrighted system? Is there a reason why we can't recreate the downtown core someplace else, like more west?
Well, so right now there's certain rules in the zoning that I don't think allow us to build the same way. We can't have the setbacks are different, the parking regulations are different, where we can't replicate it. And I think that's dumb, because we have the winning combination. We know it works, we know downtown is vibrant, we know it attracts people, we know that, or at least I think it will be just fine if we created another one out west.
Well, R5, right, which is a high density multi-use, right, which just came out, is something that's being kind of tossed around. And so the idea of possibly putting something like that is much more viable than it ever used to be.
Yeah, they're working in the right direction. And I think they're understanding that it's the winning combination. So hopefully they'll let it. And I know they're concentrating on North 7th Street, which I think is, it's interesting because it's owned by one family in particular, and it's their property. You can only force them to do so much, and if they don't want to do it, they're not going to do it. And I understand that it's right there, I understand it would be a great spot, and it would work well for town, but I'm afraid that we're concentrating on one location and we don't have a lot of power to influence the way it goes. And so, these funds that we're throwing towards it and these plans that we're creating and putting in front of them, they can just say no, even if they work perfectly. And so I want to make sure that, yes, we concentrate on Midtown and move forward, but I'd also like to see even further west, out by the Ferguson Farms, out by Latinga, areas that are already kind of commercial centers but don't have the same setup as downtown. I would love it if we could just replicate the downtown setup other places, because it works. It does. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask a question about your reason for running
Okay.
and why city commissioner, and what in your background has prepared you to stand up and lead now?
No, that's a good question. Well, city commissioner, because it was the election that was open, and it was just right there. It was time for it, and I had been thinking about this for a really long time. You know, you wake up and you have your thoughts for the day, and inevitably, this was one of my thoughts every day. And so, year after year after year, the only way to to silence that voice is, I think, to act on it and to do it and to try it. And so I decided the only way to do it is to do it, you know, and so I just went for it. As far as preparing for this, I've just always been the type of person that listens, and I don't burn bridges. I don't like to burn bridges even if we don't get along. I love to have a conversation with you instead of just getting yelled at and walking away. It drives me nuts.
Body slamming.
Yeah. I've never thrown a punch, and I don't plan on it. It's just not who I am. I'd rather have a conversation with people. You know, I've broken up plenty of fights when emotions are high and people aren't thinking clearly. And unfortunately, I feel like that kind of relates to politics, where you get so entrenched in your ideas and your vision that, you know, even though your end goal might be the same as somebody else, you just fight with each other because, you know, the steps that you see to get to that goal are just so different. You don't see any way you could work together. And so I've always been the person that kind of breaks up fights and gets people to look at each other from, you know, more of a human standpoint, I think, and say, hey, listen, you know, we all, when it comes down to it, we all want the basic stuff. You know, we all want to be happy, we want to be healthy, we want to be smart, we want to be safe, and it doesn't matter who you vote for, you probably want that for yourself and your family. And I would just love to be able to kind of rekindle that relationship from everybody and kind of fill in this divide we've created and work towards, you know, a common goal that will make a better life for all of us, I suppose.
And the part two to that question is, what in your historical background has groomed you to be this leader today? And is there something that happened that sparked this in you recently? How come now?
No, it hasn't been one spark. I think it's just been kind of festering for forever, and it's just part of who I am and my nature. And as far as the roles, I've never been. I don't really like to lead from the front. I like to lead from the behind and just make sure everybody's okay. And so, you know, I don't get up on podiums. I don't do anything that's kind of the traditional, I guess, politician approach to these things. I really don't have much as far as, besides just who I am and how I live life and the attention I give to people and the care I have for them, whether I know them or I don't.
So with your leather business, and I know I asked you this the other day, and I thought it was kind of a clever question. You know, knowing that leather is every piece is different, and you have to use your senses to get the best out of what you're working with. How has your successful leather bag business prepared you to deal with this potential political position you might be holding in the future?
Well, I guess it could start financially in that I don't take out business loans to grow. I grow with what I have. I stay within my means, and it's a slower growing process, but it's I think it's more satisfying because you know you've done it all yourself and you haven't taken, you know, it's not a handout because you obviously have to pay back these loans, but you stay within your means. And I think a lot of times, you know, or at least the perception is with government that you spend too much, you kind of do more than you're asked, or you kind of overreach, overspend, and I think my approach to that would be a little bit different. I would like to stay within, you know, what we have, work with what we've already got, not rely on more money from people. I would love to not have to raise taxes and just cut spending in different areas and use it more wisely. As far as the product, I'm a perfectionist. You know, I really pay attention to detail, and I think that's going to come through in it. every single stitch I make, I go over 3 times. Every single stitch, you know, I don't use a sewing machine or anything like that, and everything, I just try to make it perfect. I want it to last long. I would rather spend more money initially and have it be with you for the rest of your life than spend a little bit of money and have it break down in 5 years. That's kind of my outlook on these things with the water treatment plant and, just systems like that where we know we're always going to have them. I agree with, doing it the best as we can for the longest outlook as possible. I think that's a smart approach because it's a more of an investment right off the bat, but in the long run it's a smarter investment and it works the best, according to my philosophy.
What do you think is your greatest challenge gonna be as a commissioner?
Is getting through the perception that just because I don't have experience on boards doesn't mean I don't pay attention to things, and doesn't mean that I know them as well as other folks. I think that they're going to look at me as a young person who doesn't have experience in this, and they won't know the sort of person I am until I present ideas, until I show how creative I can be, and create or come up with alternative approaches to these things. I think it's just going to be kind of the you're young, you don't know what you're doing.
Be discounted.
And, yeah, exactly. Just the classic misconceptions of somebody who's just getting started with these.
The issues don't bother you. There's nothing in particular that's the issue.
No.
There's no particular issue that you feel like there's, but it's more, you think it's validity.
Yeah, in general, as far as the issues are concerned, I love talking about every single one of them. I know my ideas aren't the end-all be-all, and they're not the solutions in and of themselves, but I think they're a darn good place to start, and I think it's a good jumping-off point. And so I can take criticism pretty well. I'm pretty thick-skinned, and I don't know if that's because I'm from New Jersey and people they shoot me straight, but after you yell at me, I'll still talk to you, and I'll still listen to you. And so I think that, not being persuaded from other people, or just listening to them even though they don't agree, and being discounted because I don't know much off the bat, I'll stick with it. I won't be dissuaded from getting involved. And I every time somebody yells at me, I seem to learn something, even though they might not be that constructive. You gain the ability to look at it from a different perspective, I think. And so the more people I talk to, the more perspectives I come to understand. And even though I might not be an expert in it, the information I've gathered from all the other people make you, more aware and more an expert than some of the experts.
Can you, I'm struck by the challenge of the city and the county to work together. And it's very interesting to me that, the majority of county residents are within the city, and yet they seem to be on different tracks. Do you have any ideas that are going to help the county commissioners work better with the city commissioners? It seems we have obvious problems.
Yeah.
I don't know.
The big issues, I don't know how I would, walk in the door and fix them, but I would like to start with the small things. And, it's always good to have that one big goal that you could all work towards, the pie in the sky sort of end all be all projects that we could all get done and feel good about. But I think it's also really important to have those little steps that work up to that big project to say, okay, we did this together, that's a good thing, let's work on this little thing together and kind of maintain that cohesiveness as we work towards these bigger goals. And for me, that would be little things like improving the bike paths in town on the major arterial roads that the county still has control over, like Durston and things like that, where you don't have to repave anything, you just have to change where you put the line in the road. And other sorts of small projects, and I don't know what all the small projects would be, but my mindset is we obviously disagree on some of these major issues that have created huge rifts between the two of us. If we could somehow start to mend those by solving the smaller problems and kind of using them as building blocks and cornerstones, stepping stones to kind of work our way back towards these big issues that we just don't see eye to eye on. And it would be interesting if we made sure that one of the commissioners was from a city, or if we made sure that one of the city commissioners, if we did split it up into wards or areas of town, to make sure that the voices were more evenly distributed and heard and represented. But otherwise it's going to be interesting to do big, like the jail. It's going to be really interesting to see how they want to move forward.
Ladies and
Hey, what's going on?
gentlemen,
How you doing,
Keith
Good to see you.
He introduced
Welcome.
us.
I like your jacket.
Welcome. Go in the up there. There's some food and some wine and beverages and come
You're on
back down.
film.
Come
too.
join us. Yeah.
I'm not afraid of that.
Like the jail, I would like to see it be more oriented towards rehabilitation and things like that, you know. I would love to see more of more money put into the outgoing process than the incoming process, and making sure we have all, obviously tools are important for the police and protection is important, but I would not like to spend money on more jail cells. I'd like to spend money on more mental health, either facilities or professionals that can help them, job placement, all that stuff kind of after their punishment, than pre-punishment, getting them incarcerated, kind of funneling them into the system. And obviously we need it for criminals and we need it for police officers. Just because they're in uniform doesn't mean they're stable, and it doesn't mean that everything's good. And I think that's often overlooked as well. And so for me, I'm hesitant to go forward with these projects without that sort of system put in place, without the treatment and without the recovery stuff. But as far as working with the county, I think it's going to be starting with smaller, more manageable projects that kind of reaffirm the fact that you can accomplish at least small goals together. And hopefully some fresh faces will just change things up. You know?
What would that
Be
small
good
goal be?
icebreaker.
I'm curious, what would you think that small goal might be?
Oh, everything from just improving bike lanes to,
Okay.
you know, really
You said
anything.
that.
Yeah,
Okay,
just all sorts of small
Okay.
stuff.
Great.
Yeah, I guess I would need more specific examples to
that's
tell you
great.
what I would like to
Sorry.
focus
Can I
on.
ask another question?
Yeah.
Or maybe
She
you
had
got
something.
something.
Oh,
three
No, I was just commenting.
Okay, so you know how they talk about a president's first 100 days?
Yeah.
I'm wondering what you would do with like your first 10.
Yeah, sure.
Because like,
I'd like to do 3 things. I'd like to.
like just like 3 priority items for the first 10 days.
Sure.
Like who do you wanna talk to, you know, just like what's your,
Yeah.
top 3, only 3.
Well, I'd like to talk to the county commissioners, and then I would like to present the Idaho bike law to the town to see if they can move forward with the adoption of the Idaho bike law
First 10 days.
in the first 10 days, which is bikers, they don't get the right of way in the intersections, which is really important to state because I know drivers don't like bikers that much. But what it allows them to do is when approaching an intersection, if they get a stop sign, they have to stop and then they look and they can, or, no, the stop sign, they don't have to stop. The stop sign, they approach the intersection, they look, if it's clear, they can proceed through without stopping at the stop sign. A stop light, the traffic light, if it's red, they have to stop at the traffic light, but then upon seeing that the intersection is clear, they can proceed through without waiting for the green light. So basically, it just allows them more freedom and,
Move, basically.
exactly.
Pretty much do that.
Yeah.
I know, well, that's the thing. That's the thing, most people do, and so if it was just the law,
Right.
it would, you know, make police not have to worry about it, it would just kind of free up some people, and it's free, and it's been implemented in other places, so it's not like we need to do the study on it, we can just read what Idaho has done on it, and see if it would work for us. So I think that would be something we could do. And then the other thing I'd like to do is I'd like to talk about decreasing the hours of allowable construction in town. Right now, it's from 6 in the morning till 10 at night, and that only leaves 8 hours total, maximum, for people to sleep without being disrupted, without the backup noise, beeping, or any of that junk. And so I think that would be another thing we could do for free that would, I think it would increase the quality of life because, I don't know if you've read anything about noise pollution, but it's pretty nasty. It can raise blood pressure, it can decrease your social skills, it can decrease your concentration skills, everything. And if you've got kids who are trying to do homework from 4 p.m. until they go to bed, which is probably before 10 p.m., they're gonna have to, if they're near construction, they're gonna have to do it with all this noise, all these
You know, there's
distractions.
this noise guy who like went around all over the world to find the quietest place in the world,
No.
and it's in the Olympic National Forest.
Sure.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because there's some reason, coming across the coast there, every single plane, because it's usually at that point it's what's in the air.
Yeah.
It's not what's going on.
Yeah,
They all have to. Everybody has to go around. it.
interesting.
Even here, everywhere in Montana, they can go wherever.
Yeah, I've only heard there's only like 12 or 15 places in the States where you can go without any like outside man-made noises that are left in the entire
It's
country.
usually
really
planes.
Yeah, exactly, usually planes, which is crazy.
Uh-huh.
You know, so little things like that I think would make a big difference, and I would love to do the majority of them that are free. I'd like to concentrate on the free things, because I know that's a big issue, spending more money. And so I think it would also allow us to have a more manageable growth situation, where if we cut down on the hours that we can literally grow, we might be able to change policies that affect our town sooner rather than later. For instance, we allow 1,500 more heavy machinery hours than Boulder, Colorado. So we can create more foundations, we can create more level ground for subdivisions, 1,500 more hours per year than larger cities that have the same issues as we do. And I kind of see it as, if you want to build the same amount, you have to hire more people, so theoretically it could be a job producer. And those who are being overworked will have more free time to go spend with their families, to go hunting, to go do things that, keep us here in Bozeman. So for me, that's kind of a win-win.
So meet with commission, Idaho bike law, and construction.
Yeah, I think these will be the first three things that I'd like to do, if they would talk with me.
If you can get a meeting in.
Yeah.
Well, one thing that I've noticed is that, I like your idea of, let's get some small wins, and to show people that it can be done without any money. Well, all you have to do is talk to people, and then people get used to talking to each other, and everyone benefits. And so if you can just build on that and grow on that, then it just leads to bigger and better things down the future, that it's within reach, it's not unattainable. So I'm just commenting.
Is that whole thing to get changes? Is signature? Because people can talk till the cows come home. Is it like okay? There's this many signatures in town that want to take fluoride out of the water.
Well, that
for
helps.
example.
Signatures or voices, it definitely helps to have.
But what does that do? Signatures.
He's asking how that comes to be, right? How does it become? How do you get?
Let's say you got 35,000 signatures that said we don't want fluoride in our water.
I would listen to it as a commissioner.
I know that you'll listen to it, but how does it actually work into the whole the reason why we have these certain things? It follow the trail every single time. It's not anything new. It's all money driven. Yeah. So how far can the powers, because everybody can have their questions, oh yeah, change this, but how far can actually signatures in direct make a change?
I think far in Bozeman, I think in municipalities they go a long way. Because there is money, but it doesn't...
Just signatures.
Yeah, or just
There's an open discussion.
Exactly.
Are you asking what is the procedure?
Yeah. Discussions I think are a waste of time. Facebook posts, talking in a living room, talking in a room with 500 people. Waste of time. What is it? Is it signatures? What is it that makes the change?
Can I address this from 3 years of experience now as a public official?
Yeah.
What really makes a change is when the people stand up and say they want something.
Exactly, yeah.
Government is so ignored. Everybody barks about it.
Right.
And complains about it.
Right.
But nobody stands up to do anything about it except for a few.
Right.
And so we look for those people who voice their opinions, who stand up to make a change and a difference, because it helps us provide what our constituents want.
Right.
So always listen to what the people who are speaking are saying.
So with that note, I just want to ask you what it is we can do for you to get your word out so that we can help you, create this platform. Can we be a part of that? How can we be a part of that?
I think just through conversation, and in little races like this, it's all about name recognition. And the faith of a friend in somebody else, it goes a lot further than a commercial on TV or anything like that. So if anybody comes up to you, or if there's a spot to squeeze it in conversation to do with local politics, anytime you can just drop my name, that's the best.
And the three main things you want to focus on in the first 10 days of office.
Oh yeah.
We've got it down. What are they again?
Communicating with the county. And I guess the discussion of implementing the Idaho bike law and cutting down on construction hours, allowable construction hours. And to get back to what you were asking, other commissioners that I've talked to wish that more folks would write letters to the editor directly addressing certain officials, calling them out by name. So if there's 2 out of 3 people, you know, or 3 out of 5, however many, that aren't responding or aren't necessarily listening to the people as much as they would like, if you literally go to the paper and say, hey, so-and-so, what's the deal? Why are you voting in this direction? And, you know, it'd be great if they reply to you, but if they don't reply to you, then you can keep adding public pressure to them, say, hey, you know, it's people of Bozeman, I've asked so-and-so to answer my question this many times and they've never responded to me. You know, we deserve an answer, we deserve a response to some degree. So calling them out publicly.
Well, my question is how do you scale it? Because I understand everybody's got their individual, and most people are lazy. And if they're not lazy, they're just too busy. And it's a combination of the two. So how do you scale and create a system where, and this is going back to the signatures, maybe it's an app, maybe it's a document, maybe it's something where it's like you opt in and you have a DocuSign. It doesn't even have to be the old door-to-door as like old school. How do you create something where you have that push, like he was saying, where it's the people talking, but we're not talking, we're just showing. There's let's say there's 60,000 people in this area, and let's say you get 30,000 people to opt in and say, check, yes, a DocuSign, yes. And so that is like scalable in this digital age than just like,
I think it's,
hi Mr. Sally, what's your name?
I think a lot of it's more about awareness too. There's a lot of people that aren't even really aware, and a lot of it has to do with education. And,
Right.
and informing these people of these things that are actually going on, because there is a lot of apathy. Petitions are great, but going door to door is the way to do it.
Still the classic way.
it's still,
And that's the
Why
way to
not?
do
Can
it.
we just like talk about social media? Because we're gonna put all this on
Social media is a great outlet too.
And
Is
how
it
about
personal
this?
connection?
How about-
Personally.
If we put this on social media and other people have questions for you, will you respond to them?
Do you have a Facebook group?
I do.
So this would be on his
So,
Facebook group.
yeah, link that, forward that, get that information and forward that all to us.
And
then
you're
we'll like your
welcome
page.
to
What
ask
is your
questions.
page called?
It's called Matt Saporito for Bozeman City Commissioner.
Okay, there you go. So that's
Nice.
a group
Nice
that you
and-
have.
Yeah. It's
Okay,
mine.
so
The
then we
official
can
campaign
like
page.
that and we can encourage we can post on our
Yeah.
Facebook pages.
Another thing with that is I think it's software. Somebody needs to come up with a program that's on that digital platform that works.
An
Yeah.
app, you
An
just have to do
app.
an app,
I
right?
mean-
A DocuSign app, because
If-
DocuSign is legally, you know, if you could, that's a great,
Yeah.
you got an
Well,
app.
you can
got an app idea right there.
And
Effie.
There's also electronic petitions that you
I do
can
apps.
write.
Yeah, you can create your.
Okay, testing them.
Yeah, there's different websites you can go to and create your own petitions and turn them into more of a, not an app per se, but
Right,
it is
yeah,
There's
but-
very
software that
shareable.
exists. I mean, like I work for a nonprofit where we have action alerts and like we streamline all of this, and you have to be
Yeah.
like if you go to start a petition, guess who owns that data? That website.
Right.
That's why it's free
Right.
because they're collecting all of it and then they sell it.
Yep.
Well, so like we work, you know, with our own databases to be able to have our own pools of information where we streamline that stuff, where we do have 30,000 signatures. So I think it exists. It's just like how you want to implement it and what research you want to do before you reinvent the wheel. Because it's there. It's just how you want to choose to engage with it. I think is really.
So take it to the big leagues, right? Take it to the whole city versus an independent,
I love
Yeah.
knocking on doors, man. Like I'm a millennial, and the fact that someone would come and talk to me face to face is awesome.
That's the-
Because
yeah.
because I can go on Instagram anytime I want, but the fact that someone will sit down, like Matt had coffee with me after I met him the first time, like the fact that that exists is way more meaningful than a post on social
Well,
media.
that definitely has impact for sure. I just like we live in a society where what's in it for me, and you know I'm not trying to live in the clouds and act like that doesn't exist. It's an egocentric what's in it for me culture, and I'm not like a doomsday blah blah blah, but it's like everybody's their heads in the sand. I mean they're trying to fucking pay for their groceries and they're trying to pay the rent. I mean, let's face it, like people are just doing what they gotta do. They got a few kids, they're just they're both working, they're picking people up from school. What's in it for me?
Yeah.
Tell
Well,
me.
and part of this
And
message.
because giving back is in the higher tier of of there's the security of the basics, and then there's your own self-worth, and then there's and then there's giving back, and then you go into the highest of like spiritual ascending, right? So most people are not into like, okay, how can I help others? Because I'm trying to fucking help myself.
Yeah. And I think part of that message that I've been trying to say at least is, when it comes to
Where
when it comes to like federal politics, people are like, it doesn't affect me.
I mean, we're
Struggle.
This does,
No, we're getting closer to
these-
this, to the solar. All this activity in the weather, shit's changing right now, way beyond Bozeman, Montana.
Exactly.
And whether you talked about education, people are feeling it, whether they're educated or not. They're like, something's not working here. I don't know what it is. What's the score of the game? I don't care. But they know deep down inside something's not working because it's like universally something's happening. So how do you get the shift to happen faster? This is my thing.
Yeah, that's.
Can I address that? Can I address?
That is a very good question.
Can I address that?
Yeah, please do.
Okay, here's the thing.
Okay, let me just say
You-
one thing about Julian Ritchie, who's talking right now, who's also recording all this. Julian has a media company called Quantum Studio Production Networks that under the IT company Quantum IT, and he is the president of the Phillipsburg Town Council.
Oh, okay.
All right. So we can talk about politics all day, and we can look from the top down. But when we really want to invoke change, the most powerful place to do it is in local government.
Exactly.
We're not bogged down in as much bureaucracy. And we have the ability to maneuver and to make decisions and stand up for our rights against the state and against the counties and claim our domain and do with it what we want. And our elected officials are the voice of the constituency, so it's important for the constituency to get involved with the elected officials and those who want to be.
And
Would you
on that,
consider-
my message is, it's easy to see or to say for somebody to say, what he does in the White House isn't going to affect me tomorrow in my everyday life, but decisions that we make here in town are going to be really tangible for those who live here. Like we will affect the traffic patterns, we will affect your taxes, we will affect all of those things that you deal with day in and day out. So that initial bump to give a shit is still an issue. Like how do you can lead them to water, but how do you make them drink, sort of a thing? How do you make them vote? But at least getting them educated to the point of understanding that voting in these local elections will affect their life more than the federal or maybe the state level.
Right, and how do you make it easier?
Conversation. I think it's all
Personal connections.
Personal connections,
Relationships.
conversations at the doors.
Would you consider doing something that I keep hoping local politicians will do, which is to have a regular town hall?
I would rather do that.
A regular town hall.
Yeah,
I mean, at least once a month, if not more often, twice a month.
absolutely.
And it's not about, just like this, so that it's not always just at campaign time and just when there's an ox to gore or when it's, there's a town meeting about black and olive.
They used to
But
do it
actually
that way.
just open-ended, come on in.
Go back to the roots.
I would just like to, that is the way I think that you will hear from the people.
I would agree.
Yeah, you're right.
Instead of-
That's where you build those
Instead of about a
relationships.
one
Yep.
topic, one issue
Yep.
meeting,
Yep.
or just be available, and that's a lot to ask from you. I wanna remind everybody that, you're talking about a job that you're gonna get paid $8,000 a year to do, which is ridiculous.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
That's what he's gonna get paid.
$8,000?
Well, it's part time.
It's-
It's kind of.
Hold on.
It's like 25
Hold on.
Try
It
200.
should- No, wait. It's $8,000 a year, no matter how many hours you work.
Correct.
And it is not, in my mind, a part-time job. It is really a much more involved job if you do it well.
Yeah.
If you're gonna be able to be effective at it. I know that the mayor now, who makes more, but not a ton more.
It's crazy. I thought
But
it'd be like a $30,000.
no way.
It's more or less.
Call this a volunteer. We used the word job before. It's not a job. It's a volunteer position.
Well, there's
In
the
my
root of
opinion.
it right there.
So that is
That's
the root.
part of it,
However, I'm asking
locally.
you to do work even harder.
Yeah,
By
but
going out-
I prefer that style. I would
Yeah.
prefer like the 10 to 12 person discussion with no as far, topics that are set, basically just free form listening sessions that don't take place every Monday evening for people who can't make it. You know, people who
Yeah.
live in other parts of town and just kind of hop around and just listen to folks. Yeah, that's been more or less my favorite part of the whole campaign. Is just doing smaller group talks and listening to
And
folks.
people do this during campaigns, but they don't do it after they're elected. And
Well,
that,
or even, yeah.
I just think that that would really be the way to connect.
Yeah.
And yeah, we're busy, extremely busy, and we're lazy, all that, but still, this would be the way to bring it in.
Yeah.
Well,
you gotta reach out to this extreme and lazy and be like, okay, I'll meet you so you don't have to be, so you can still be lazy and we can still meet.
So you can
You know?
once a year.
Let's